All right. The sign says we are live. Sorry, I had planned tonight that we were going to do a comparison of a couple little toys that I got this week. I don't have my helper. He's doing youth group, and so I'll be on my own tonight. I did, however, make a little aerial press. I've really enjoyed that. I got this one at Coffee Con. One of the workers there gave it to me, and I got a metal filter, and then I got the easy pour cap that comes on it, and so I'm going to do those two. We'll either record one this weekend, or I'll do it next week with Eli helping me. We're going to have some help to do the water and all that good stuff to make it where it can go on camera. I wanted to remind you guys, the only way we can grow is by getting bigger on Facebook, Instagram, those places. So we are Legacy Farms Coffee 200 on YouTube. We're Legacy Farms Coffee 2010 on Instagram, and we're plain old Legacy Farms Coffee on Facebook. And then we are Legacy Farms Coffee at hotmail.com if anybody wants to email me, or my phone number is 620-386-4833. So give me a call anytime. This week, a couple of the questions I picked two: what is my favorite coffee and why? And then what is my favorite brew method? So I'm going to talk about those here in just a little bit. John is on. I think he's going to be on screen with us tonight. I'm not sure if he's in the United States or if he's in Honduras, but I'm going to bring him on real quick. He has a nonprofit, and he also has a coffee farm in Honduras. I don't think I know I haven't been to his farm, and I'm drawing a blank whether he's been to mine, so we'll have to ask him. All right, John, which side of the border are you on?
Good evening. I'm still in California. Next week, Honduras.
Well, I haven't bought my ticket yet, but
where are you? Are you in Honduras?
No, I'm in Kansas, but I need to go. I need to get down there sooner rather than later. I've got a group that's wanting to come up, and it's they're wanting me to be there when they come. They're wanting to lay some blocks. So I went up last month, and got the foundation laid and poured, and then I had them lay three. After I left, they laid 3 rows of blocks. So all the concrete blocks and stuff will be delivered within the next 10 days or so. So when they come up, they'll have a construction crew. They're just wanting to stay one day. They're wanting to lay blocks, but they're also going to do a dental clinic and a medical clinic. Mm-hmm. So that's something that we're really trying to get going there. And it's hard to work with groups sometimes. And even if they're watching me, I'm sorry, but it's hard to work with groups sometimes. And there's no money in the budget, to fly back and forth a lot of times. So you just have to fly back and forth, especially when there's nothing to do on the farm. This last trip, I went up for 8 days. I didn't even go. I mean, my house, if somebody will Google, you can go to Google Satellites or one of those places and Google Legacy Farms Coffee, Cerro Bueno, Honduras. And it'll be an overview of my farm. And you look right in the center of the farm, there's one building, and that's our organic bodega. That's where we store fertilizer and the organic compost that we bag up once it's dry. So that'll let you know where the farm is, and you'll see the house. The house is just right in the middle of the farm, basically. And having said that, I never even had a chance. I was there 8 days. I never had a chance to even go on the farm. We were just working up on the top of the hill. The current satellite doesn't show the new project. It was so it's probably 2 years. The satellite picture's 2 years old, but we were on the very top of the hill near the main road, and that's all we did was work on the footing. And my guys were hauling in 120, 150 pound boulders to make that footing with, because on the side of the hill we overdo everything.
You need it.
We make it as stout as we possibly can. And so it was a massive footing, and for a 24 by 28 or 20 by 24 building, I put a pretty good size foundation on it because I don't have a lot more space to build. So I'm building it where I can go up. Mm-hmm. So at some point it'll be a 2-story building. So and then we built the wall where there's rebar coming out of one wall so that we can build there'll be a second classroom at some point built on the side of it. And once we get that done, then both those buildings will go up. They'll both be 2-story, but it's tougher when it's on the side of a hill. We want to make sure that it never slides down. That's the goal. So it's got a super footing under it. And then all the walls are, the blocks are completely filled with concrete, and every 3 rows of block, there's a, rebar put in on top of the block to hold it all together. And we do the best we can. And I'm not an engineer, but so far nothing's fallen down. So that's the goal. But I don't know, John, every week I do fan questions or subscriber questions is what I ought to call them. And one on this week was, what is your favorite coffee? Do you do pour overs and those kind of things?
I do some pour overs, and I got a new aero press just right before you did. So I tuned in to see how you've perfected the upside down aero press.
Well, I've got a video that's going to go. It might have already been posted. I'll have to. My son Eli has learned how to do a lot of that stuff, and but I've had aerial presses. When we cup our coffee, what you see in the background is a formal cupping. We have an international cupping room, and that's why there's 5 cups in each one of those. Groupings. So each one of those sets of 5 cups would be 1 coffee. Mm-hmm. And that way we can have 5 professional cuppers there, and each one will get to break the crust. And breaking the crust is pretty important. And so that way 5 people. So there's 40 cups on the table, but that table will only cup 8 cups of coffee. And so once we do that cupping and get the regular profiles, then we go from there. We have a second cupping table that we take it to, and that's where we find out if the coffee has some kind of if it shines one way more than the other. So those cupping tables will have a couple V60s, a couple of AeroPresses, a couple of French presses, a couple of Kleber by Bonavita, a couple of Chemexes. And so then we'll start putting those coffees through those different processes with cuppers and regular people, to see which coffee you like best. We'll take the same coffee and we'll run it through 3 Chemexes, and everybody will try it and sort of make some notes. And then we'll take that same coffee and run it through 3 aerial presses. And I say 3 because that's how many I have. If I had 5, I would go ahead and do 5, just like the table. But I've really enjoyed the clear one. Somebody gave me this one. The clear aerial press I really like. Mm-hmm. And then I've got this metal screen. And I love the metal screen for a couple of reasons. I tell people the way I sell coffee is all I have to do to sell a pound of coffee is to have 5 minutes of no work, to make a hot cup of coffee, and to sit down. And as soon as I do, a customer will walk through. Mm-hmm. And I love my customers. Please keep doing it. It's well worth sacrificing a cup of coffee for a sale. But that's sort of my joke. Or when I sit down and I'll turn on a movie or watch something for a few minutes and sit down with a cup of coffee, then my wife walks in. So she always catches me when I'm sitting down doing nothing. So those are my 2 things. But one of the things with the AeroPress, with any pour over, you need to wet that filter and wash that paper taste out before you start doing your pour over. And with the AeroPress, because there's so much pressure on it, once you wet it, you need to go ahead and press it pretty quick. So if it sits with water in it for a minute or 2, when you start pressing it, it just destroys the filter and dumps all your grinds into the cup. But with this little metal guy here, it is so easy to clean. And one of the reasons I like the AeroPress is because the filters are so cheap. Mm-hmm. And the AeroPresses I bought all came with 100 filters. This new one came with like 20. So they're so cheap. And I like hot coffee, so I tend to, if it gets cold, I tend to pour it out, and then I'll make another one. And with the V60, it's 6 cents per filter. With a Chemex, it's like 13 cents per filter. The Bonavita is 5 and 6 cents. And so it's a lot cheaper to use the AeroPress. And so with the AeroPress, I'll put 30 grams of coffee in it, fill it all the way, steep it for a minute or two, and then I'll go ahead and press it. And then I'll add 120 grams of water to whatever came out of the AeroPress. Now, I've never measured that out and calculated what the mix is. That's just the way I do it. And then I just did this one, and this was a 15-ounce cup, and it's 3/4 of the way full of coffee. So with all that, it probably makes about 12 ounces of coffee, maybe 10 ounces of coffee, which is pretty good. But to answer the question of David, I'm going to mispronounce his name. I think David Soren sending it in. Maybe he's watching. If he is, tell me how to pronounce your name. But he asked what my favorite coffee was. And that bounces around from year to year. But generally, I like a washed cup because the washed coffees are very versatile. I'll drink it in any pour over, but then it always makes a good espresso. But right now, I'm drinking the Marsellesa red honey process. The next coffee that I didn't get a chance to cup this year is a Perinema, and it's a washed Perinema. No, it's not. It's a red honey Perinema. I'm going to step off camera. I think I have my cupping scores right here. This year we had the most unusual cupping scores that we've had in 9 years of cupping. Well, I'm dropping everything. Yeah. Well, I knocked everything over that I could possibly knock over. But I haven't had a chance to try that Perinema. But it's the next lot that comes up that I'm going to start roasting this next week. The aromas are honey and bread. And the flavor profile is honey, dulce de leche, and grapefruit. And so I didn't get a chance to cup that one. So this weekend, I'll start running samples through the sample roaster and sort of figure out where it's going to be at when I roast it in the big roaster. Because my minimum batch on the big roaster is 15 pounds. I do like 12 pounds in the sample. 12 ounces in the sample roaster. And I always do exactly the same amount. I put 12 in, I get 10.3 to 10.4 out. And so I know I'm fairly consistent. So I've never had a coffee that is that rare. I had a yellow Bourbon one year that had lemonade was one of the flavor profiles. I think it was light strawberry and lemonade were two of the flavor profiles on it. And so that was the most unique one and the highest cupping score. It was an 89.25. This one with the honey, dulce de leche, and grapefruit, it's an 88. And so those are excellent cups. And that's so that might be my new favorite coffee. But the Marsellesa variety in a red honey or the Perinema in a washed or red honey right now are the three coffees that I'm drinking. And yesterday I played with mixing the two of them together. I just dumped I had a cup, I'm not even sure what kind of cup it was, but I mixed half and half and, tried brewing it that way. But next week I've got somebody, I think I've got a barista coming down from, I'll say a dirty word, Starbucks. She came in yesterday looking for a job. She works half days at Starbucks and she wanted to work for something coffee. And she was just so excited about coffee. She was really excited when she came in here. And so she's going to come in next week with the girl that works for me now is Leah. And so the three of us are going to do 4 or 5 hours of just cupping some blends that I'm going to try to work with and just play with some coffee and do the roast levels. Leah doesn't drink coffee. This other girl, I forget what her name is. We'll call her Starbucks girl. She drinks coffee and her dad hobby roast together. So that's the closest person I've got to a cupper. So we're going to bring her in. and we'll play with that. And my wife is she's really good at cupping. So I'll have her come in too, and we'll just spend a couple hours drinking coffee, cupping coffee, and we'll just probably pick one brew method. Because there's more people, we'll do something like a V60 or the Bonavita Clever is what it's called. It's a full immersion pour over. And so we'll probably do that one. That's one of my favorite pour overs, and it'll make a 600 milliliter batch. So that'll be enough for everybody to have, a cup of coffee, and not just slurp it like we do in a cupping, but like actually sit and drink the coffee and think about it a little bit. And I feel like for me, that's more the way I drink my coffee anyway. And I get more from that than I do the cupping a lot of times. And we got our new cups in. We ran out of cups. We got more in last week. So I like having my own coffee cup. Makes me feel important, maybe. I'm not sure. But have you had any reports from your farm?
No, nothing lately.
Do you know what a V60 is? Have you done one of those pour overs?
Yes, I have. I usually use a Chemex, but
I like the Chemex. Just the filters are expensive.
right.
This one is it's made by Bonavita. It's what's called a full immersion. So it has a valve on it, so I can shut that valve off and let the coffee steep. And after it's steep for 1, 2, 3 minutes, then I can open it up. So I'll generally go ahead and I generally pour 100 milliliters of water. I do 15-to-1 mix. So I'll put 30 milliliters or 30 grams. Really, there's not a big difference between those two measurements. So I generally just do everything in grams, especially when I'm on the farm. We use those Hario scales, and they're only in grams, where all my other scales are changeable. You can change the different grams, milliliters, and all that, ounces and pounds. And so I'll do 30 grams of coffee to 450 milliliters of water. But what I'll do is I'll put the 30 grams of coffee, zero the scales, and then I'll put 100 milliliters of water and steep it for about 2 minutes. And then after it's steeped for 2 minutes, I'll go ahead and start finishing that pour out to 450. About 250 milligrams, I'll go ahead and open the valve and just finish pouring out to that 450 mark. And so that gives me a 15-to-1 mix. And that's just a mix I came up with. It's easy to do in my head. 20 grams is 300, 100 grams or 10 grams is 150. So it's easy math. And it's easy for the workers to do when I just, spout out something real quick. It's easy for them to remember, and they can make one real quick without having to write it down or anything. So that's probably my preferred brew method when people are over or when I'm doing a bigger pot. My biggest problem is I'm real snooty about hot coffee. I've got coffees this year from 83.5 to 88. There might be an 88.25 in the batch. And so I'll drink coffees that are better than other coffees. That's all great, specialty grade coffee. But so I'm not just particular about that. I enjoy the different flavors, but I like it to be hot. And I'll drink it, and I don't guzzle my coffee. I sip it, but I want it to be hot. So I generally make smaller batches when I'm by myself. But when I do a large batch, it's in that Bonavita. And when I do a smaller batch, it's in my aero press. In the past, I've actually had what was called an air press, and it was actually a Chinese knockoff. I didn't realize it when I ordered it because I'd never used one before. And I just thought air press, aero press. I didn't know the difference. And so I ordered probably a half a dozen of them because they were really great price, $12, $15, something like that. So I ordered, probably half a dozen of them. And then I realized later on that it was a knockoff because where this one says AeroPress on it, mine says Air, AIR press. And I have to have a cupping, one of those little cupping bowls that you see in the background. I have to have one of those, and I'll put this plunger in the hot water because I have to swell the plunger. Otherwise, when you do an inverted, the water just runs out. So I have to get it hot. Otherwise it won't swell up and hold the water. So it doesn't have very good tolerances, just because it's a cheap knockoff, So I've really enjoyed the AeroPress because everything is perfect and it works like it's supposed to. And I like when most people do their AeroPress, they would put the filter in their cap, snap it on, put the coffee in here, and then put their plunger in. And what I do is the inverted AeroPress. So I go ahead and put the plunger in and turn it upside down. So here's the press on the bottom, and then your filter goes on the top. And so then I'll put my let's say 30 grams of coffee in it. I'll fill it up with water. I'll give it about 3 stirs. Let it steep for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, however much I want to. And then I put my filter on it. I put the screen in, then put the cap on it. Then I turn my coffee cup upside down, and then you roll it, and then you press it. And so that lets you steep your coffee. Because if you just put the coffee in and start pouring the water, it's going to go ahead and start brewing. It'll start dripping out. And then you'll have a big air gap in it most of the time when you start putting this in. And if you've ever seen AeroPress accidents, it's generally when people have this on top of a cup and they're trying to get this on it. And, if it goes south, then you've made a huge mess. So it's less messy. And it's just something different, but I enjoy the steeping the coffee. And I grind my AeroPress now. I used to grind it about 2.5, and now I ground it on about a 4 and then let it steep. And I enjoy the flavors of it. And just the convenience. It's real easy to clean up and dry it up. And
so question, is it important to not have air in your press, or is air adding steam that is important?
No, I don't know. I don't know that the air bothers it, but the more air you have, the less water you're going to have and the less water that's going to run through your grind. And so that's the reason I don't want a whole lot of air in it.
Okay.
And when I pour it that way, with the inverted method, I can run the coffee all the way up level to the very top. And then, and then I know I'm getting all the water that I want, that I can to press through the grind. And then when once it's in my cup, then I add that extra 120, which sort of works for my personal preference on it. And before next week, I'll actually do a couple of tests where I measure how much water, but I would imagine it's probably 200 milliliters. I would imagine this probably holds about 200 milliliters of water. So you're probably putting, 320, 340, something like that, milliliters of water. 200 of it gets pressed through the coffee, and then the other just thins it out. But I've been playing with some different recipes this week. I did one where I did 15 grams of coffee, and then I only put the water to like about 1.25 and pressed it to try to make what they call a single shot espresso, with the AeroPress. And you could definitely tell it definitely had an espresso-y kind of flavor to it. So I enjoy just playing with it. If I've got a few minutes, I try to play with something.
Cool.
Tonight I was so busy yesterday. I drank 1 cup of coffee yesterday, and today I've had 2. So this is my 3rd cup of coffee for the day. So I went to bed at midnight and got up at 4:20 this morning, and went to class for a little bit, practiced forms, and Eli had a 1.5-hour kickboxing aerobics class that he did. And so today it was weight training, kickboxing, and they just keep a fast pace. And I go in the back and practice forms. That's about all I feel like doing at 5 o'clock in the morning. The class goes today it went from 5:15 till 7. And so it was an awful long class for exercise.
You're doing well to do that.
I gave up after
coffee.
Say again?
You're doing well to do that much activity on so little coffee. You're coffee deprived.
Well, I try not to drink a whole lot on days I'm going to exercise a whole lot because if I drink a lot of coffee and then I do a couple long classes, then I tend to crash real hard. And so Saturday, we generally show up at class at 5:45 on Saturday morning, and classes either go through 11 or 12, just according to how many people. A lot of people don't show up for the 11 o'clock class. They just call it a day. We all go home. But a lot of days it'll go through 12 o'clock. So we have a long day that day. And otherwise, we do 2 to 3 hours a couple nights a week. So sometimes I'll go on Wednesday night because it's a pretty small class on Wednesday night. But we go Monday, Thursday, and Saturday, and sometimes we squeeze a Tuesday and a Wednesday in if we're not busy. But right now we've been pretty busy. Friday, all I'll do is roast. I've got to roast 540 pounds on Friday, so that'll be a pretty long day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you need to come to Kansas. I don't know what your schedule is. I'll let you know what mine is as far as when I fly up. I know I made a mistake by not buying the ticket already, but I'm going to try to go to Honduras on the 15th. And then I'm probably going to stay for I'll come back right around Thanksgiving sometime. And I've got to look at the calendar and see what days or what. But I think we're 5 hours or so from where you're at.
Yes, I may miss you because I'm leaving Honduras on the 14th. I'll get there on the 31st of October, but be gone by the 14th.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we probably will miss each other. I've got a group coming on the 20th, so I'm going to shoot for somewhere around the 14th to the 18th to go. I like being there a couple days ahead of them, and that way I can haul all the materials in. But that's sort of it. How have you guys coming with finding workers from Nicaragua?
We have a trip planned for in about 10 days to Nicaragua. They've already made several calls down. We have about 35, we think, lined up to come. So for the season.
And so they'll come in to stay about 2 months and pick and then go back.
Right. Yeah, we have facilities. We built a new facility for them. We have a cook lined up, and they just stay and pick coffee and every day for 2 or 3 months and then be gone.
And you guys pick it in cherry and take it out?
We pick it in cherry. We process it there on the farm.
Oh, you do depulp it and all?
Yes.
Do you dry it?
We have, 3 dryers now. So we're able to dry maybe 40, 50% of what we harvest. Or
you dry it with a mechanical dryer?
No, it's just a dome Quonset type, just sun.
So like I said, is it what they call a secadora solar, like a drying house on beds, or?
On beds in a solar house.
Okay.
Secadora solar.
We've got 2 solar dryers. We used to have 3, and then now we rent a farm about 8 miles from our place, and it's got a really unique microclimate. It's about 2,400 feet lower than what our farm is. It takes me 45 minutes to drive that 8 miles. But then when we get there, it's a really unique climate because it's got steep mountains around it. And so when the sun comes, it just gets hot. And so the fog blows over and burns off. Very seldom the fog drops down into where we're at. And so we're able to dry coffee there where we can't dry it at our place. So we've got there's an adobe house there that Pedro stays in. And so we'll build him a tent and then we'll put like a Dole type humidity tester in there, like a laboratory grade humidity tester. And then he'll keep track of the coffees. And then every day I leave at 4:30 to go get workers, and I bring the workers into the farm. And then once my guys take the workers to the farm and get them started, then they come back up the hill and load my truck. And then we drive out to that farm and unload the truck and put it on sheets of nylon or plastic. And then we zip back. to the farm as quick as we can, unless there's coffee that's close to being dry, and then we just have to sit and wait. And so you sit and wait on the coffee. If if a coffee's at 14, 15, 16%, if I drive all the way back to the farm, I won't have time to do anything before I have to turn around and drive back and pick up the coffee, and then I won't be able to make it back in time to take the workers home. So then I'll have to send my wife in the truck, and we only have one pickup. And so we'll have to, make 2 trips in that truck to get the coffee back, because you have to stop it at that, 13.1%. You need to get it up off the ground as quick as you can, get it in the shade, and then start opening those bags where they can breathe and start cooling down. And then the coffee will rest in those bags in the bodega for about 3 days. And then we'll log them in, we'll weigh them, tie them up, and stack them, on the right pallet inside the bodega. And then they start the 90-day resting period.
Mm-hmm. How many days does it take normally to get your coffee from, down to that 13, 14%?
It all depends on the weather. We've had coffee on great days. We've had coffee that dries in 4 days. But then you have bad days where you have to pull it off the concrete patio, move it in the solar dryer. It might sit there a day or 2 or 3, and then we have to bring it back out for maybe 3 hours. And then, and so now that we've rented that place out there, this next year, I hope we've got enough money that we're going to build like a pretty good sized roof out there where we can put the coffee in the shade. There's no running water or electricity out in that area. Mm-hmm. So we can't put fans on it or anything. So hopefully next year we'll just have to take a generator out there and try to cool it down with the fans. We're pretty particular with the coffee. We want to cool it down as quick as we can. If we can't get it in a truck and head back to the farm, then we need to be able to put a fan on it or something. But definitely get it in the shade, because on our farm it never gets above 88 to 90 degrees. But out there it'll hit over 100.
Oh, okay.
So it's a big difference just being 8 miles away. It's insane.
Amazing, yes.
So it's well worth renting that little piece of land, and we only use it for 2 months. But like a full natural is going to take, it's going to take 18 days, even in normal. That would be a good amount of time. 30 days would be a longer amount of time to dry it. But if it's out there and it's 100-degree weather, a full natural will dry in 5 or 6 days. If it's that kind of. The problem with that is, though, you have to have a small trigadora, a dehuller, to dehull it so that you can put it in the tester and test the moisture. So that means jumping in a truck and driving out there, driving all the way back to the farm and dehulling the coffee just to test it, only to, call him and say, it's too dry, get it up, So we're hoping to be able to put a generator out there, and we'll take this cupping lab you see in the background. There's a small huller in that holds 225 grams at a time of parchment. And so that we would bring that out to that drying farm also. And then that's why another reason we'd have a generator out there is to be able to run that, because it's got a 1/2 horse motor on it. And so that would let us dehull it and test it right there in like a 2 or 3 minute period, rather than that 45 minutes to an hour and a half that it normally takes us.
Much nicer.
Yeah, because parchment can go from about 14% to 13% in, 15 minutes, where the natural is going to take, a lot longer because it's got that full cherry on it.
Right.
So it's definitely different, a different way of doing things. It's a lot slower process, but it's a lot better coffee. One of our most sought after coffees are the naturals that we make. And we're fixing to put a new natural online Monday, and we do that, then sales will start picking up. it's a variety we haven't had for 3 years. And so I haven't had an ECA 2 natural in a couple of years. So we're going to put that up on Monday, and it'll for green sales. And I won't have it up until sometime next year is with the roasted. I have a natural that we like that goes in our blends. So we'll sell all that ECA 2. We'll sell it as green coffee to our home roasters and people like that. That's the goal anyway. If anybody wants to buy it, we'll have it for sale. But the naturals do sell really well, but they're a lot more expensive coffee, and so it makes a difference what the roaster is wanting. A lot of the guys just want coffee because it'll be around, according to what the cupping score is, but it's going to be $1.50 more than a regular coffee, and that still doesn't cover the cost it takes to make it. Because a natural takes up 3 times more patio space. It takes twice the labor, at least double the amount of time to dry, at a minimum, double the amount of time. And it's probably 10 times more likely to go bad than any other kind of coffee we dry. So if the weather's not just perfect, we won't even attempt to do a natural. And some coffees don't work well. My Katui doesn't do well as a natural, and my Perinema doesn't. I've never had a good natural out of my Perinema, so I quit trying it. Richard's asking if it's live. Yeah, we're live tonight. Richard, you're welcome to come on if you want to. Richard's a home roaster. I might be wrong, but I want to say Texas. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to text him. I think he's been on a couple of times, and he buys. He's got a smaller roaster, like a home style roaster. Most of those will do 1 pound to 2 pounds, something like that. Some of them do 4 ounces to 1 pound. It's according to which one you get. But they buy quite a bit of our coffee. Today, I think I had 3 orders that went out of green coffee, and all of them were anywhere from 6 pounds to the biggest one was 10 pounds. So I think I had a 6, an 8, and a 10-pound order of green coffee today.
Nice.
And so I'm not sure. I've never tracked how much coffee I drink, like pounds per week or anything like that, because I just dip out of the big buckets that we have here. The buckets all hold like 18 pounds. And so I just dip out what I need for the day. I bet I'll probably drink 5 or 6 ounces of like coffee a day, at least. I don't know, because it's about 1 ounce. 30 grams is a little more than 1 ounce. So if I just do 3 or 4 cups a day, that's 3 or 4 ounces a day. So I go through a couple pounds a week, just what I drink. So a home roaster roasting for his whole family, might do a couple pounds a week. So yeah, it adds up pretty quick, and you pay anywhere from. I haven't kept up the last year or so. He's from Arkansas. Well, that's better. I'm from Tennessee, so that's a good place to be from. I sort of lost my train of thought. I enjoy when I do some of my, like I placed in the Marcala thing this year. I've yet to roast that variety in the big roaster. I haven't found a profile that I really like. And my geisha is the same way. I don't roast the geisha in the big machine or my Mario Hipe in the big machine. I don't generally sell that online. I give it out to friends, and that's what I drink myself. And so I use my Hucky. I have a Hucky 500. And so that's the one, my sample roaster. And so I'll roast, if it's for me, I'll roast 6 ounces or 8 or 10. If it's for samples, I only roast 12 ounces. And so, Richard, what can you tell me what roaster you have? And I'm not sure who else is watching. If you guys, if you're not shy tonight, chime in and tell me who all is watching. because I can't see who's on. I can just see people are watching. I can't see who's on until you say hi. But yeah, that was the first thing we started doing when we got into the coffee was we had planned on just selling it in cherry. And then once I decided we were going to try to dry some, we went and bought a little tiny depulper. We bought a 2.5 churro. And then I think a year later, we bought and that had a washing unit on it. And then the next year we bought another 2.5 because I wanted to get into the honey process without a washing unit. And then the year after that, we bought a 4.5 churro machine. And that's the main one we use now. But we still use the smaller machines for the wash bourbon, the geisha, the Mario Hipe, some of those smaller lots. The Robusta that will be growing in 2025, it'll be a small lot. It'll go through that. I've got another crop. We're adding more of the Mario Hipe to the farm. And so those smaller lots will all go through those small machines. So an Anna will take a guy and they'll run the small machine and they'll do those little tiny lots. And then my son Jonathan runs the big pulper, and it's a 4.5. So it'll do 4,500 to 5,000 pounds of cherry per hour. And so that's our big pulper. And it doesn't have a washing unit because we canal wash. So I don't like the machine washed as much as I do the canal washed. So it'll run into a tank. We've got some big tanks. We'll run it into, ferment it for a day. Okay, Richard has a SR 540. I've got an SR 700 on the farm, and that's a air roaster, 260 grams at a time. So that's about 8 ounces, I think, something like that, 8 or 9 ounces. I'm not sure. Do you have the extension tube on yours, Richard? So the main pulper we use, we'll walk the coffee up on top of the hill, and that's where that is. And then the patio is about 30 feet below the pulper. And so I just built a big long chute. And so it goes down onto the patio, and they'll catch it in big wheelbarrows and take it to the patio's broken into 6 sections. And so we'll take it onto one of those 6 different sections and dry it. Unless we know we're taking it to the drying field, and then we'll bag it up, and then they'll use the wheelbarrow to take that over. And there's a loading platform, and my big truck will back up to that loading platform, and we'll load it straight into there, and then take it out to the drying field. It's either between picking times, in between the time the workers start picking and they finish, or after after we're through, which is about 8 o'clock at night. So with that bigger machine, we can usually pulp all the coffee in 3 to 4 hours and be done with everything. And then we put it all in the truck, and then Eli comes out, makes a whole bunch of 20 or 30 things of Lipton cup of soup, and everybody gets a hot meal in their belly and cleans up and dries off. And then we make that 45-minute. If it's nighttime, it's more like an hour drive out to that field. And then we start break out the flashlights, and we start unloading that coffee. And we put it on. We have 100-meter rolls of plastic. I think it's 6 meters wide and 100 meters long that we roll out. And then we put the coffee in the center. If it's nighttime, we'll just leave it there. And the next morning they'll spread it out, and they'll start raking it with the wooden rakes. But there's sort of a formula for everything. If it's a natural, we do it a little bit different. If it's washed, we do it a little bit different. They all tolerate the weather differently. So everything is sort of, each coffee is done different. And we try to track how we do the coffee each year. And so I keep weather reports and all that on what the coffee was every day during the picking season, what the coffee was during the drying time, just any information that I can keep. Somebody's sending me a text message. a good friend of mine from China wanting to sell me bags. So I have a policy, just in case you're watching. If you have little cat ears on your profile picture, I'm probably not going to do business with you. And I wish your picture showed up well enough. But she represents a coffee bag company, and they're wanting to sell me coffee bags. And her profile picture has a little cat nose, and she has little cat ears on. So I'm not being judgmental, but I think I probably am being a little judgmental, but not going to buy bags from the cat lady. But no, it's I mean, coffee, it's finicky. It can go bad. It can, So you guys sell your coffee in parchment once you dry it, or do you guys dehull it and select it?
We sell it in parchment.
Well, and that's what we did the first, year. Some of it we sold what's called Pergamino Mojado. We sold it that way, and you get a little bit more money for dehulling it. You get a little bit more money if you take it down to 30% humidity, and then of course you get even more money if you take it down to 12.5 to 13.1. And so there's different pays grades, and so the more experience we got, we would start doing that. And then finally, we decided that we would. We just took it to a place and had them hull it and select it. And then, I realized pretty quick when we started doing because we weigh the coffee when it comes out cherry, and then I randomly weigh it when we'll do a lot after it's been hulled or after it's been pulped. I'll weigh it again. And then if we're doing it on those small machines, I'll weigh the cherry that got taken off, and I'll weigh the raw coffee that's still wet, and then try to see how close those numbers are, and just trying to track everything. But I realized real quick that the numbers didn't add up, because now that we weigh it the day that it's 13.1% or 12.5, we weigh it then. And then the day we get ready to dehull it, we'll weigh it before we take it to the dehulling house or to the Trigadora house. And then we'll weigh it after the girls select it. And so we keep up with all those weights. And so I sort of know it's going to take me like roughly 8.25 pounds of cherry to make 1 pound of roasted coffee. And so I know sort of what my numbers are. And those numbers change from farm to farm. Anna's numbers are better than mine. Bahidio and Santos's numbers are worse than mine. So every farm's a little bit different. But I realized real quick that the numbers were way off on what we were getting when we took it to the mill, how much green coffee we got after they did their laser selector. And then I would weigh the defects, and then I would weigh the green coffee that we had selected. And I'd put those numbers against the numbers that we're currently producing when we handle all of it. And the numbers were way off from what we're getting now. So that it really made sense for us to just, keep doing it in the house. Because there's been a couple times we wanted to take it in just because it'd be cheaper. But I'd really like to have a laser selector just because the labor situation is so bad right now.
So were they skimming some coffee off of what you took in, or where was the disappearance?
Yeah, we were losing a couple 100 pounds over what?
Wow.
One day we lost an entire lot. We dump it into that. We dumped our yellow Katui, which I had pre-sold already. And so we had done a cupping on it while it was parchment, and we had that coffee pre-sold. And so we literally dumped it in. And then we take our bags and we go over to the Cyclone, and then we send part of our bags over to the defect. And so we hook it up there, and then we hook the other bags up to the green coffee that's coming out of the, of the laser selector. Mm-hmm. And so we went over and nothing came out. And the guy came over and he's like, the guy that was running it came over and said, what happened? And I said, I don't know, And then the mill itself brought a truck in right behind ours, and our coffee never came out. So we went home with 18 empty bags. So we went in with 18 full bags of parchment. We went home with nothing. And so the president couldn't meet with us that day. So we met the next day. And then he had workers from the farm or from the mill that showed up at the office that weren't in the mill. I said, well, where are the guys that were working yesterday? And they couldn't come. And so, and then he calculated our entire lot with some formula that he had. And he said, well, your entire lot weighed this much and you got this much coffee. So that number's right. And I'm like, yeah, but we put in 18 bags and got out nothing. And he just kept repeating the same thing. He said, yeah, but you put in 520 bags and you got this much. And at this calculation, that's correct. And he never would answer the question. He just kept repeating the same thing over and over. And so they basically just stole our coffee, and so our coffee ended up going into his lot that his mill did. It was one of their company trucks brought it in. And so it was a mistake they made, but they knew there was no way to rectify the mistake because we took pictures of the bags while it was the empty bag hooked to the cyclone standing in front of their worker. And it said, the day that it was cut and the day that it was put on the patio, the day it was taken off the patio, the day it went into bodega, all those dates and weights, all that information was on the bag. It said Yellow Catouille from lot 2 and all that. We just took a pile of those empty bags and I took all those pictures to him and he never would admit that, anything. And I said, what are you going to do? He's like, no, you have all your coffee. And I said, I don't have all my coffee. And so finally I knew there was nothing I could do. He ran a multi-million-dollar company and he wasn't going to make right on it. And so nothing I could do. I just left and lost, I don't know how much, but a couple $1,000s worth of coffee. And so that day we made the decision, we're going to start hand selecting our own coffee and we'll just figure it out as we go. And so and it was a blessing in the long term because, we select what's called a near zero defect. And, we have good selecting and very few of our customers complain about Quakers. Quakers are the most difficult to select out, but we have very few complaints on, defects that they find in the coffee. And our girls are trained really well. People get on to me because I call them girls, but I'm 56. So if you're not 56, then you're still a kid, Most of the you can't select if you're below 18. So our ladies, girls, women are from 18 to probably about 35, something like that. I know Anna's 37. She said she's the oldest woman there. So, but they're trained really well. We have a good process to the point where the other mills steal our workers. And so that's the only reason I'm thinking about getting. Twice last year, the mills stole our workers. And so they'll wait till they get trained and then they'll come in and steal them. And so, and you have about a 3-week curve where I'll take the most experienced woman. I wish I had a layout of the cupping lab. I'll have that up next week on my background, but just picture a big room and there's 4 little, it's like a cabinet sort of, and there's four stations. And so there will be an experienced woman and then a woman that's never selected, and then an experienced woman and a woman that's never selected. So those 4 stations are our training area. So we'll put those ladies, the 2 experienced ladies with 2 new ones, and they're going to train them. So the new girls are going to select almost nothing. And then you're going to cut the experienced women that could be doing 100 pounds a day down to 30 or 40. And then there's a big table that's like 16 feet, 18 feet long. And so there's 10 women that are working that table. And so at the beginning of the day, we started out with 400 pounds of raw green coffee on top of that table. And then they're all selecting. They've got a bucket between their legs under the table, and there's a bucket to their left. The bucket to their left is the defects. The one in the center of the table is their good coffee. And so they select out, put it in the defects in the defect bucket, the good coffee in the good bucket. And then there's a little table in the corner that 2 women sit at. Then I have standard cupping trays. They're like oval cupping trays, but except for these are hard, thick plastic. I've got about 20 white ones and about 20 black ones. And so then Anna will come by and she'll take a scoop of defects with the black tray, and then she'll take a scoop of the selected coffee with the white tray. Each of the trays are numbered according to the workstation. So Isabel is station 1. So her trays are going to say number 1. So then she takes it over to the corner station, and the 2 ladies will reselect that coffee. And they're looking to see if there's defects in the white tray, and they're looking to see how many good grains are in the black tray. Mm-hmm. A lot of mills pay by the pound, which makes the girls have to work really hard. It's more stressful. Might be a little bit more money. But by doing it by the day, we don't necessarily make anybody mad or hurt their feelings if we redump their coffee. So if they've got a lot of defects in the good coffee, then their coffee is going to get dumped back on the table and it'll get reselected. So it doesn't hurt their pay. It puts me behind. Mm-hmm. And then their defects, there's generally very little good coffee that are in the defects. If there's any doubt, you throw it out. That's sort of the rule. And so I'm not that upset when there's a couple of good grains in the defects. I would rather there be none, of course. But the biggest problem is if there's bad coffee in the, bad grain in the good coffee, because that's what's going to be sold, And so, because we sell the other coffee, Wakuko, it goes to like Cafe Maya, Indio, those guys. We sell about a ton of it, out the door of the farm every year. But other than that, anything bulk goes out to to those guys. And that's the green coffee that's picked up off the ground, the black coffee that's picked off the ground. Everything we sweep up off the floor every day goes into a pile, and the women's divvy it up on Saturdays. But the majority of the bad coffee will go to those guys, and they're going to roast it super black, and nobody really cares. That's the coffee that you're going to buy for 50 lempira in the store. And so it doesn't really matter what the quality is. You're going to roast it so dark, you sterilize it basically. And that's the coffee that they traditionally drink. And that's what they enjoy drinking. They don't enjoy drinking the red honey or any of that. They say it's, it's not strong enough. It doesn't have any flavor. It's too thin. Those are the descriptions they give. It's too much water in it, So they like that really dark coffee. That's what they've grown up with, and that's what they like. So that's what we sell. And I sell it for, I know a lot of you guys watching won't know what lempira are, but I sell it to my workers for 35 lempira. And then they sell it for 45 to the store, and then the little pulperias. And then the pulperias sell it for 55. Some sell it for 60. And this, it's so that way I can promote my workers having their own little side hustle, their own little side business. Because basically that's $1.35 is what I sell it. That's a roasted, ground, and bagged. I sell it for $1.35, and then my workers turn around and sell it for about $2, a little bit less than $2, and then the store sells it for a little more than $2. So everybody makes a little profit, and I think we probably break even because from my part, Anna gets a 15% commission for handling everything, so I don't have to. And that's just a laziness factor on my part. It's 100 yards from my house to the main gate. And so 7:00 at night, somebody's banging on the gate, and you have to walk up to the gate, and they're like, I need a pound of coffee. And so I'm like, okay. And then I go down, get a pound of coffee. And then sure enough, they give me a $500 bill. And so then I have to go down and get change. And I've learned after a while, to bring change. So most of the time they don't really want coffee. They just want somebody to break a $500 bill. If they do that in a store, the store charges them a fee a lot of times. And so, I've learned now that Anna keeps me a little bag of money, so that when I go in to get a bag of coffee, I've got, a couple hundred lempira and change. So I can take that up and give them change for the coffee. Or, sometimes they decide once they get there, they want a second one. So then I got to walk back down again. My knees are bad. And so what I did was turn it over to Anna. And so we don't do any more door sales after 3:00. And so Anna handles all that. And so she'll keep a stash at her house, and so people can come to her house, and then she can sell it and she can make that profit. If she sells it out of her house, then she'll make 15% for the initial sale, and she'll make 10 lempira for every pound she sells. So it's win-win for her. I think she made like $400 last year selling coffee. 400 US, which is 10,000
nice.
lira, and that's a pretty good chunk of money. And that's, on top of her job. And this year she sent 15 exportable bags of coffee to the US. Some of it's hers and some of it she bought on the street, processed. And because we built her a solar dryer at her house. And so we went up there, poured concrete, put up a solar dryer. It's 12 feet wide, 20 feet long, and then got a fan in it. So we built that at her house. And then her husband bought her a 2 churro depulper. And so they pulped the coffee there. And then I think she took one of those 300-gallon tanks home with her so she can wash the coffee there. And so she processes and does everything at her house. Unless she has a big picket, she'll bring it to our place. But this year they process and she had 15 bags. So 15 bags of coffee is 2,250 pounds of green selected coffee. So that's a lot of money for her.
A bunch for her. That's kudos to her.
Yeah. I mean, she'll have $7,000 roughly by the time she pays people to pick it, her fertilizer, and the exporting cost. She'll have, because she pays me the exact amount it costs to bring over per pound. We divide the whole container, divide it by how many pounds we put in it. And so that's what she pays. And so, yeah, she'll make a chunk. Last year she had 8 bags. So this year she had over double what she had last year. So yeah, it's made a tremendous difference, in her income, especially. Bahidio had 420 pounds. Santos had 450. San Diego had 47. I forget what Pedro had, but all Pedro's coffee cupped at a 30 point. So we had to dump it. And then Melvin had probably about 35 pounds. They were both, San Diego and Melvin were test lots. We just bought some coffee from them and processed it to see how good it was. But I've already found a buyer for all of Melvin and all of San Diego next year. I've got a green buyer or roasted buyer for all of Pedro's next year. And so the goal is to get them paired up with somebody in the States that'll buy it and either roast it or, sell it roasted in like their coffee shop or something like that. And then if I die tomorrow, then they keep selling coffee. And Anna knows how to export. So she goes with me to the exporter. And so it's something we're trying to make it sustainable. And it's not sustainable if they have to go through me. So next year, all the buyers will pay directly to our guys, with the exception of Anna. Anna's individual accounts aren't set up to accept that much money. So Anna might still have to go through us, but the other guys can take up that, take that much money. But it's something we just play with and try to expand on every year. We try to find sustainable things. Santos has his wife's got a little store. So we got her a fridge and freezer. And so she sells little frozen things. They'll buy frozen chickens, and then she'll cut them up, or she'll buy a chicken. She raises ducks and chickens. She'll either buy it or process it there at the house, cut it up into legs and wings, thighs and breasts, put them in individual bags and freeze them. And so people will come to her house and buy that because she's the only one in that area that's got a refrigerator. So she can do that. Bahidio has a refrigerator, freezer. He's got a barber shop. He's got 2 corn grinders. So he grinds corn for tortillas, cuts hair, and so we've helped them start those home businesses. Juan Carlos, we've helped him buy a farm, a big farm, like a half a manzana. We've helped Santos buy 2 small farms. But because of Bahidio's businesses that we helped him start, he has bought his own farm with his own money without our help. So he's pretty much self-sustained now. So he's one that I really love, and but I expect him to leave the farm probably next year. It's he spends a lot of time working for us, and he's making enough money now that he doesn't have to. So I hope we're still able to buy his coffee, and help him out a little bit. But at this point, he doesn't have to have us. He doesn't have to have a day job anymore. He can just cut hair, let his wife grind coffee, and then they sell stuff out of their little store, and they can make a living. So next year he's looking at getting double the pay on the farm. If I want to keep him, I'll have to double his pay, and I'll do that. He's that valuable. Hope he's not watching, because I'm gonna start out at 50%. But this dang it, teaching him English is not going to be not that smart now that I think about it. But no, he won't. He's too shy. He won't speak any English to me. But I've heard him. I joke around a lot, and I've heard him sort of giggle at a couple of my incredibly funny jokes. So I know he's listening, and I know he can understand a lot more than he acts like he can.
Right.
But, yeah, it's that's the downside for sure, because every guy that we've taken to run the farm has been a worker. And so Ishmael, we took him, and he ran the farm, and then now he runs a company that installs billboards. Gustavo, he came to me, and I taught him how to do, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I taught him how to do PVC pipe and electrical. I taught him how to weld, and then I taught him how to lay blocks. And so now he's got his own construction company, and he actually built my what's going to be the coffee shop. And he's built a couple of buildings on the farm, so we contracted out to him, and he came in and built, after he ran the farm for a year or two, and then he left and started his own company. Juan Carlos ran it till last year. And now Juan Carlos has a corn grinder. We helped him start a corn grinding business, and then helped him start a pulperia in his house. And then we bought him a half of Mansana farm. Not bought it, we financed it. We have interest-free loans. And so he's got a 10-year loan, and he's paying like $11 a week or something like that for the next 10 years to pay off that farm. Hopefully he'll pay it off sooner, because it'll be in production this year. And so we'll hopefully start not buying his coffee, but pairing him with a buyer. And then once he does 1 year of that, we hope that he follows our financial plan, where he starts putting back most of that profit, because obviously he can live without that money. So we're hoping he'll put most of that money back to buy fertilizer. And then the next year he'll be able to start paying back that loan in big chunks, because the sooner he can pay us back, the sooner we can send somebody else money. Richard is saying, I think the Finca Osman that I have, Richard, some of it is washed, and some of it is honey. I know I'm looking at a bag of washed right now, so that's what we're selling out of now. But I don't process any of the workers' honey, natural, because I don't want to take the risk of them losing their crop. And so I don't do any of the workers' coffee in a natural. Anna's this year we did a tiny bit, but somebody paid me like $6 a pound for it, and they bought all of it. But next year she'll roll the dice, because she's financially able to, and we'll process some of her Sargi Moore and some of her Katoi. We'll process those natural and let her take that risk, because she's financially able to take it. And so those will be offered. Next year, Bahidio is going to be financially able, and so we'll take some of his coffee. If the weather is conducive to where we can process our coffee natural, then we'll process some of his natural and let him have that chance to make a little more money. But if I'm not willing to take the risk on mine, then I'm not going to have them take the risk. Santos is not able. He's been building a church. He just started going to church, but he built a church last year for his wife with all of his coffee profits. This year he's finishing up the church, and so he's not going to have any profits. So next year he'll probably be able maybe to where he could do a little bit of natural, but that's going to be up to his buyer, because he's contracted. So he's got a contract for everything he can grow, and that buyer wants it honey or washed. He's not asking for natural right now. So that'll be up to his buyer whether or not he does natural. But next year, for sure, I'll have some of Osmond in a natural. And we're over an hour. I'm trying to keep them at 45 minutes. So we're gonna wrap it up. I know John just texted and said that he had to leave. So I'll be online for a few minutes after we wrap up. John, I'd like to holler at you before this weekend or before you head to Honduras. I'd like to holler at you and see if we can, if your guy runs across some people that you guys don't need, if there's any extra ones he runs across. I'd like to sort of find out how you're negotiating those contracts and what the average pay and stuff like that is up near Donley and all, and try to learn how to do some of that because we've never hosted workers before. So November we're actually turning that building into a barracks and putting beds and hammocks in it and running electricity and Wi-Fi out to them. We don't have showers and bathrooms. We're building 2 bathrooms and 2 showers for probably we're only going to be able to handle about 20 guys this first year. But I think that 2 bathrooms and 2 showers can handle them. I'm hoping it can. If not, if not, we've got showers and bathrooms on top of the hill that can, and we'll figure out something. But 20 guys is probably all that we can handle. I'd like to get 23, 24 because I feel like if it's like most years when we have a big group come in, we lose a couple guys. There's going to be some drinkers. There's going to be some troublemakers in the big groups. I know when I go to Agua Catal, we started out with 75 and we ended up last year with like 55 because there were some guys that were troublemakers. There's a few that just wanted to ride to town, and so they come in the farm and then they walk right back out the other end of the farm. At the end of the day, there's 20 guys show up. And then when I get to the top of to weigh in, there's 50 guys show up. And when I get to the top of the hill, there's 20 guys that start jumping in the back of the truck. And so they just wanted to go shopping, and so they just called a free ride. Yeah. But no, I'd like to know somebody else's process if you're willing to share that information. And if you have time while you're there, your people, y'all are welcome to come out to the farm and stay, even if I'm not there. And if y'all just want to get away for a day or two, or want to see the farm, the Hideo can give you a pretty good tour, even if we're not there. But otherwise, I'll be there January the 5th. And so you can, January 5th through March the 20th, I'll be there. So if you get a time, that you can come up during that period. We're an hour and 10 minutes from, XPL. And so I'm assuming that's where you fly into.
Exactly. Right.
And so, if you want to, the day you fly in, if you want to come out, it'll be a quick drive for you and come stay a day or two and sort of see what we do. And then you can tell us how you do it. And maybe we can swap some ideas on how to do stuff better.
Great. I'd love to. Yeah, that'd be fun. All right. Yeah. We can chat and arrange something. I'd be happy to share anything that, we find out. So,
and we keep up with a lot of data too. If you want to, if you want any copies of how we, Richard just made a comment about chafe, but I keep up with data on the difference in the parchment. There's a different weight on honey, the natural, and the red honey versus black honey versus washed. There's different weights on all those. And so when you sell X amount of coffee parchment, roughly what they should be paying you for your green coffee selected. I've got some of those numbers too. So, but yeah, anything you can. And Richard, if you'll let me know, the chafe is definitely different with the hot washed and the honey. It's definitely heavier because the chafe is actually the silver skin. So yeah, there's definitely differences in those. And there's different ways to roast them too that I know a little bit about Honduras that I don't know about other varieties that I definitely like to know on other varieties. But I'll do my sign off. But thanks for coming on again, John. It's always good to talk to you.
Okay.
And Richard, come on next time so we can see your pretty face. And but yeah, we'll do another one next Wednesday. But thanks, guys, for coming on. And if you've got any questions, just shoot them to me in Messenger when we're done. and we'll see you again next week.
Cool. Appreciate it. Bye for now.
All right, thanks. God bless you guys, and I hope y'all have a good night.
Yep.
But yeah, that's we signed everybody off. Remember to please share us with your friends, like us, subscribe. YouTube is Legacy Farms Coffee 200. Instagram, it's Legacy Farms Coffee 2010. And Facebook, it is just plain old Legacy Farms Coffee. So yeah, give us a shout out to your friends, share us. This is recorded. It's also going to be on Podbean, Amazon Video, or Amazon Prime Video. We're on a lot of those different podcast things. It's audio and video, so you can listen to us while you drive. But yeah, please share us. That's the only way we're going to grow. And the only way we can help is by people knowing we're out there. And that's our biggest problem right now, is people don't know we're out there. And so, yeah, share us with your friends, and we will talk to you next Wednesday. I'll go ahead and schedule it tonight. And so I'll go ahead and post that on my Facebook page and stuff, what the link is for next week. But thanks, guys. We'll talk to you again soon. Have a good night. Good night, Richard. Thanks for coming on.